Justin Herbert, I'd be very surprised if he's going to be clearing 400, rushing yards and being used as a legit rushing weapon near the goal line. So I'm not exactly expecting him to take this boom. And an offense, I think you're right to believe is going to be more run heavy. So I'm thinking right behind the Bears. Is that too harsh?
What is going on, Sharp Football family? Is your resident Swami of Konami, Rich Hribar. I am with Ian Hartitz, Senior Fantasy Football Analyst at Fantasy Life. You can find him on the Fantasy Life show, which will be live Monday through Thursday, 5 p.m. Eastern, and then Fridays at noon Eastern throughout the end of the NFL season. We are ranking the NFL offenses in terms of our confidence rankings. So make sure you go find that over on YouTube if you want to see us visually kind of slot these teams in. We're doing our best to kind of translate that to audio and tell you what tier we're putting them in and where we're placing them ahead of teams. So check that out. Check out the first episode that we already did. So right now we currently have the Baltimore Ravens as our lone elite tier offense, and we have very good the Buffalo Bills and the Kansas City Chiefs. The good offenses, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Miami Dolphins, and Atlanta Falcons. The fine tier, we have the Colts and the Jets. Bad but optimistic, the Panthers and the Seahawks. We have not yet put a team in the bottom tier. Let's see if that changes right now with the Pittsburgh Steelers.
They're either in good luck or bad but optimistic. I have been taking some DK Metcalf. Look, Rodgers can still spin it. All right. He's not moving around the same way. I get it. But Devontae Adams was the wide receiver 8 once he kind of came to, New York last year.
Both receivers still scored touchdowns last year for the Jets.
That's what I'm saying. And you even look past it. And there is some level of, doctors. I am not a doctor, believe it or not, everyone. But there is this idea that second year from an Achilles, Rodgers could be a little bit more fleet-footed. So, again, guys, I'm not trying to write out a scenario where all of a sudden they're going to be great or anything like that. But it's more like, do you think they're going to be bottom 3 or, bottom kind of 6 or 7 in the league? So, Arthur Smith, I will say, usually gotten the most out of some, offenses and quarterbacks that haven't exactly been wonderful out here. So, I do like DK Metcalf more than most. I would say, oh man, who are you more optimistic about, the Seahawks or the Steelers, Reeves? I almost lean the Steelers.
Ooh, I would still probably say the Seahawks just based on, the age of betting on, a 42-year-old quarterback, DK Metcalf, even though I think the price point is solid for DK Metcalf, this is still a guy who's only given us one season as a wide receiver 2 or better and is now moving to a system that's probably going to throw the ball significantly less than they did a year ago. And then the backfield is compartmentalized, right? Like they probably eat from each other while they're healthy. Now, if there's an injury to Caleb Johnson or Jalen Warren, I think that other player becomes significantly fantasy relevant. Yeah, CPAT. Oh yeah, I forgot I am with the resident CPAT truther here as well. But while they're working in unison, Caleb Johnson and Jalen Warren kind of take the best from each other as well.
Yeah. So you know what? You can argue that no one on this offense is going to be ranked inside the top 20 at their position in week 1. If that's not good luck, what is?
Right. So I am really saying, even having a little bit of optimism for DK from a target share perspective and a contingency upside if Caleb Johnson or Jalen Warren were to get hurt for the other player to elevate. But you're right. We've got one guy being drafted as a starter, and the Johnny Smith edition hurt 2 guys too. What a loss. So I think that they're a better real life football team than they are a fantasy football team.
I just still can't believe. I know Minkah Fitzpatrick, maybe not the same beast in recent years, but the fact they had to give him away too, man. Maybe something's going on in the locker room that, we don't know about, but just that whole trade, it did, what was the line? Just felt like they were reshuffling the chairs on the Titanic. It really is a situation where it's like someone needs to save Tomlin from himself and just blow this thing up already. Come on.
Yes. Just be bad one time, Steelers. Yes. Just be willing to be terrible one time. All right, that's it. We're moving on from the Steelers here. We're moving on to the Arizona Cardinals, a team that probably let some gamers down from a fantasy stance outside of James Conner last year. No. You had Connor McBride hit, and then you had Kyler and Marv at ADP disappointed. So it's kind of 1 foot in, 1 foot out. They did end up, when you look back at it in hindsight, like they ended up facing like one of the tougher slates. And not to give a hall pass to them, this offense, but they did face a lot of good pass defenses last year. And like when you look back on that from like a perspective of like Kyler's never been like the greatest thrower of the football in terms of like punching up. And then Marv was in a first year where like schematically he wasn't really used that greatly. I guess in general, where do you see Marv in year 2? Like where do you see the growth? Because you've listened to the shows, you've heard everyone talk about how Marv was used. If we're all talking about it, do we not think Drew Petzing knows too? Or is this a Kyler Murray problem?
It is one of these things, though, too. It's like the chicken or the egg. Like, I admit it's not great seeing Marv used, purely on these go routes that often. He was actually the only wide receiver, men's 70 targets with 25% or more coming on go routes. But, man, I see him, Kyler missing Marv on these contested slot fades. And on the one hand, I'm like, maybe an extra year in the offseason, working together, they can get better. But those aren't the sort of targets that we should expect to have this high, hit rate on in the first place. And then it's like, well, why don't they get him easier, opportunities to run off the catch and stuff? That's never been his game. This dude forced 5 missed tackles his last season at Ohio State. He forced 1 all of last season. Marvin Harrison Jr., I know everyone wants him to be, the next big thing. He really looks a lot more like Courtland Sutton right now, which isn't horrible. Courtland Sutton had over 1,100 yards and had like 10 touchdowns last year. Like, if Marv has that season, that's good. But, Courtland Sutton still couldn't even crack the top 24 with some of those numbers on a per game basis. So, again, I would like to believe that Petzing could get more out of him. But at the same time, nothing's really changing other than, I guess, Marv put on an extra 10 pounds of muscle mass. So, don't want to be out on the guy, but expecting that leap up into the neighbors, BTJ, wide receiver 1 territory, it feels like a bit more wishful thinking than being like, here's this change. This is why it's going to be different.
Yeah, I'm with you on that, especially now that he started to climb too. And I get it. He's a high, even as bad as he was last year, he still was a high touchdown producer. And he was actually second in the NFL in end zone target share rate. And he plays next to a guy who's apparently allergic to scoring touchdowns going back to college as well. Cause it's not just you go back through Trey McBride's collegiate history. It's the same thing, but we do have McBride still in the elite tight end 1 tier, even without the touchdowns, especially in your full PPR and tight end premiums. And we still have the James Conner still kind of looks like a value again. And I get it. Eventually, the bananas turn brown, but like he was hyper efficient again last year. And you brought this up with Derrick Henry. Like, I mean, there's still no signs of him like declining as an actual football player. So like, why should we just think like it immediately like just declines and flatlines? He stayed healthy too last year. So we still have Connor, we still have McBride that we're optimistic on. How about Kyler in general? Like, what are you doing with Kyler?
I'm drafting him because I've been getting a lot of Trey McBride in, round 3, because he goes right after. I think there's kind of a tier break after the top 10 running backs, top 11 wide receivers. So I'm cool taking McBride at that point. It's been Bowers where going ahead of McBride, I haven't been able to wrap my mind around it. So from that perspective, I'm cool taking Kyler. Even though Kyler's ADP position-wise is the same, he's going like 30 picks later overall. So from that perspective, I've been okay. It just feels like wishful thinking for the rushing stuff. I know that Kyler said he's open to running more, but I don't know, man. They would kind of hear this from him almost every offseason. He averaged 9.2 fantasy points per game from rushing in 2020. Every other year of his career, he's been at 5.4 or less. So at some point, it's like, we know he can do it, but I'm just not sure if they want to actively be, opening him up to those hits, because let's face it, he is a pretty small stature dude out there. But at the end of the day, Reeves, like, as much as we can nitpick, Kyler's a top 12 quarterback. Connor's been a top 15 running back. Marv, I'm not exactly expecting top 15 heights, but he could be a low-end wide receiver too, and that's still a good year.
There's no target competition.
Yeah, exactly.
McBride, like, Michael Wilson isn't happening.
No, and unfortunately, our one true short king, Greg Dortch, that was a little bit ill-advised as a late-round dart last year. But I'm just saying, we have 4 guys who were pretty confidently ranking at least in the upper pack of their, positions. If that's not at least in the good tier, man, I don't know what we're doing.
Yeah, I like that. And the question is, though, we're putting them in the good tier. Are we putting them ahead of the Falcons? Are we putting them ahead of the Dolphins? Or are we putting them ahead of the Buccaneers? Are they in the back end of this?
I feel a little better about the Dolphins, I will say. I think the Dolphins have more guys where they could be legit top 10 dudes. So I think that's the right spot for them.
All right, great. So we're putting them behind the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, behind the Miami Dolphins, in the good tier, ahead of the Atlanta Falcons. That brings us to another team with a lot of moving parts this offseason, the Chicago Bears. And if you look at the Bears, they're kind of all getting a hall pass for what happened last year. Because
Except DeAndre Swift, of course.
And the dude has dodged more bullets than Neo, man, this offseason. Yeah, I mean, but we talked about it. We've hinted a few times to the play calling stuff. Ben Johnson, gets hired as head coach, and the immediate allure of Ben Johnson and what the Detroit Lions were able to do, especially in the turnaround of Jared Goff's career, is all just being kind of saying like, all right, we're back in on all these guys. Caleb basically has the same ADP as last year. DJ Moore is still being drafted as a wide receiver too. Roma Dunze doesn't have like a complete collapse in ADP. Yeah. Interesting enough, they add more players on offense too. They use the top 10 pick on Colston Loveland, and then they use the 39th overall pick on Luther Burden. And they had 3 interior linemen in Drew Dahlman, Joe Tooney, and Jonah Jackson, which was a problem area too. So what are we doing, with the Bears from a top-down stance? Like, how much do we think was the coaching staff's fault, which definitely was some, or do we still have a Caleb Williams problem here?
I mean, he certainly deserves some of the blame. I mean, I was making the joke about DeAndre Swift, and that was just like everything for Caleb was like, well, the offensive line gave him no chance, and now did the scheme. And it's like, well, if we all agree running back is like more dependent on its scheme and teammates than any other position, shouldn't DeAndre Swift be kind of getting a pass too? So again, with Caleb, he can do the hard, which should be the part that is hardest for, quarterbacks to happen. We have pocket passers who just cannot ever do the things that Caleb Williams can do. So you would like to think someone like Ben Johnson can make the objectives more clear. But man, Reeves, like, do you really believe that Shane Waldron and these coaches just refuse to watch film with Caleb Williams? I would really like to get the second side to that story. So, hey, Ben Johnson wants to live in Caleb's mansion and they can do that. That's great. I think there's been enough personnel changes, though, for me to go ahead and buy into this. Again, that offensive line already had good tackles for him to make over the interior. That sounds good. Didn't have a lack of weapons. We thought the weapons were fine going to last year, but getting Loveland and Burden, as you mentioned, man, certainly, good improvements over Cole Kmet and, Keenan Allen, who hopefully will sign with the team at some point. So I can't put them in very good yet. I do think they deserve to be ahead of fine. The question is where in there. One spot. It's them versus the Dolphins for me. What do you think?
You want to put them in good?
Where do you want to put them?
I was thinking more into like the fine.
Ooh.
The one thing too, because my concern with the Bears from a top-down stance is that like the top-down it could be fine, but like for a fantasy perspective, do we have any like who has a pathway to like an elite run out here? And this is a team that has a really tough schedule as well. Like they have especially like if you're in a one quarterback league and you're drafting Caleb Williams, right? The Bears open the year with Vikings, Lions, Cowboys, then they face the Raiders, then he has a bye week. So through the first 5 weeks, what's the confidence level you're playing him in more than one of those games, the Raiders game, right?
Yeah. No, you're spot on. And I think from a real life perspective, I consider them similar to the Dolphins and Falcons, but no, I mean, we are doing this more fantasy wise. And hey, even though I like DeAndre Swift, I'm higher.
I think they're more towards, like I think they have more of a cultish vibe to them.
Yeah, no, I think that's true. I would put him ahead of the Colts because I believe more in Caleb than Daniel Jones. Okay. So top of the fine tier. Wouldn't be surprised if they get in the good, but yeah, there's enough competition going around at those spots to be concerned. Even Colston Loveland, man, I've been getting him in every dynasty team I can, but I don't think Cole Kmet's going to completely disappear just for 1 year.
And Loveland's coming off of off-season shoulder surgery. Yeah. We'll keep tabs on his availability, in training camp. I mean, everything's pointed that he's gonna be available. If any missed time for a rookie, though, like could just put you on the back burner, especially because Kmet is capable. And he's signed to a big contract too from the previous regime. But yeah, I think that this is a thing where like I struggle to see the elite run out for a Bears individual player.
Have you been drafting one like really consistently? I've mixed them in, but.
Yeah, I've been mixing in the receivers, based on, kind of team builds. And I have been mixing in Swift based on team builds too. If I go wide receiver heavy and I just need a dude that I believe is going to be like out there and viable, especially in full PPR, like on DraftKings, I've been taking some Swift.
Yeah.
In those best ball leagues, I think he fits those team builds too as well. I don't think that like a lot of these guys, like you have some floor with some of these guys. I just, like I said, I think it's more of like a fine thing. That's why I think they fit there.
I feel like week 3, we're gonna see the pecking order and it's gonna be more clear. But man,
like I said, that opening month schedule outside, you get that week 4 Raiders game, but like they have a tough start to the season too. So as they try to find their footing on the year, and then the fantasy playoffs are, I don't want to look too far ahead. Like we'll see what happens. They could be more of a mixed bag, but Yeah, but I think fine. I think, like I said, coltish very much from like a fantasy perspective because they have a lot of pieces. We're optimistic if everything works, but there also is some floor here too. I see a run of some potentially darkness on the horizon. The New York Giants are the next team in the queue here. And this is the team. It's obviously to say, like, you could be optimistic the quarterback play is better, right? We don't know what we're going to get out of Jackson Dart. Russell Wilson is better. My God, does this team have a really, really like tough layout though? Like their schedule is an absolute nightmare. We don't know if the offensive line is really any good outside of Andrew Thomas. We like Malik Neighbors.
Yeah.
There could be a running back committee. Like, are the Giants able to be even ahead of the Steelers in the good luck tier?
Malik Neighbors, again, if we want to do the Achilles style one-on-one, who wins? Malik Neighbors wins that. So I think I would give him that. Otherwise, though, it's tough. But the backfield's pretty similar to Pittsburgh. You know, we both have two guys that are kind of in that RB3 range, just hoping one can take over. I would say I'm with you. I think Pittsburgh, while both those guys are healthy, they're going to eat into each other. I do think Tracy or even Scatabo could just emerge as the guy. We saw Dable.
True.
We've seen Dable be more willing to leave one running back on the field as opposed to Artie Smith over the years. So not getting much else for her. I like Darius Slayton just as a late best round, best ball pick, but we're not getting too excited about him otherwise. So I would say better than the Steelers, but yeah, they deserve to be down there last year.
Yeah, let's not linger here. We're gonna
pass rush is fun though, man. That is a
rush. And that's the other thing for fantasy football is like their defense on paper actually looks legitimately good.
Yeah.
And like, is this a team that just plays like really like tight football games and like just they try not to have their quarterbacks turn the ball over and lose them the games. And, maybe that, we're that's not going to push us off of Neighbors, but maybe Neighbors doesn't have like the run out to like 170 targets and maybe he's in like the 130 range.
That could be, man. Again, it's one of these situations where I actually,
because their front seven is awesome on paper. Like on paper, their front seven is really good.
I will say Neighbors is one of these guys where, you look at the scoring offense and where he's going, and it's not pretty. I did run the numbers and I just wanted to see, like how dependent or how correlated are, the top scoring fantasy players with their scoring offenses. Quarterback and running back each had like R coefficients, like north of 0.5, like positive. So you really want to be on better scoring offenses there. Wide receiver and tight end were the spots that actually we see higher performers in fantasy land still exist on bad real life offenses. So again, not completely worried about Neighbors. He could easily lead the league in targets, but yeah, man, whereas the Falcons are one of these teams where, again, Bengals vibes, we can expect these back and forth shootouts. Giants probably just gonna be a lot of nasty football. We'll see if maybe they can get that one score record a little bit better. Not gonna be easy with that schedule.
Speaking of a team that probably wants to play some nasty football,
oh no,
the Cleveland Browns and their what is even like a four-headed quarterback? We know they're not going to enter the season with four quarterbacks because neither rookie is going to be able to be placed on practice squad without getting claimed. But right now we got four quarterbacks. The defense, although is worse on paper, is still a defense that you could still squint and say like they're capable.
Yeah,
we have heard some arguments for pro cases, bull cases for some of their skill players, Judy, Quinshon Judkins, and David Njoku in terms of where the tight end hierarchy is. So the Browns, how low? I think they still probably end up in good luck tier, but do they jump the Giants? Do they jump the Steelers?
Thing is, I've drafted a lot in Njoku because he's going as a borderline tight end one. Back-to-back top 5 seasons. The Flacco splits are amazing. And hey, the old adage, what's a rookie quarterback's best friend? Their tight end, especially Stefanski's offense, and Njoku's more like a check down option. But at the same time, if it is going to be the Kenny Pickett or Shedeur Sanders experience, would expect them to be a bit more run heavy. Not exactly a guarantee it's only going to be Quinshon. Drafted Sampson for a reason. Jerome Ford's not dead as much as everyone likes to forget about him. And man, old enough to remember, man, when Stefanski would split things up very evenly between, the beast that is Nick Chubb and even an older Kareem Hunt. So we kind of have these workload concerns. I know Judy got going down the stretch, and I don't want to completely say it was all to do with Jameis Winston, but the other variable of that was Cedric Tillman getting the season-ending concussion and the Njoku being out of the picture. There were some Wandale-esque stat lines there down the stretch for Jerry Judy, okay? Again, had a nice year and stuff. It was good to see as someone that's drafted him a bit too much over the years, but at least with the Giants, at least with the Steelers, I mean, I am excited about Neighbors and Metcalf, and I can even get behind, the Jalen Warrens of the world a bit more. I would probably put the Browns last, man. Maybe they get better health on the O-line.
I think that's
but
fair.
Man. Yeah, it's rough.
Yeah, and I do have the actual Jerry Jeudy numbers after the trade of Amari Cooper. He ran 152 routes without David Njoku and Cedric Tillman on the field. And on those plays, 32.2% target rate per route run, 37% of the team's targets. He ran 184 routes with Tillman and Njoku on the field, and he dropped to a 19% target rate per route and 20.8% of team targets. So there was just more than the Jameis, like you said, getting factored in. There was an overlap between the two variables there, and you got a lot more competition. The ghost of Deontay Johnson is there. As also see if he decides he wants to play football. We're going to keep this train moving here with another team that, there may be some optimism, but I don't know if they're going to really be a lot higher than some of the teams we talked about. It's the Tennessee Titans. Obviously, you get Cam Ward. They don't have a player going in the top 50 in fantasy drafts. So how could we consider them like optimistic, right? So I think they still have to. I think by default, they have to be in the good luck tier because we're hoping Cam Ward could turn this around. I think that they want to have more of a backfield split than they had last year too. I think Tony Pollard's usage was kind of forced. And remember, Pollard got nicked up again because his usage was extended.
Yep.
I think Tajay Spears gets a little more work than he got last year because he was just so banged up. And then after Calvin Ridley, like who else are you drafting as a pass catcher here?
It's really just Calvin Ridley. I think we got Van Jefferson starting on the Titans in the year 2025. There are some hilarious dudes going on in that wide receiver room. Maybe some of the day 3 guys work out, but Ridley is one of these, you can kind of say similar to Jerry Jeudy. I'm a little more confident in Ridley just because I'm more confident in Cam Ward overall. But yeah, even then it's like, oh yeah, I like Calvin Ridley. He's my wide receiver 28 or whatever. So tough to be too, thrilled. Tajay Spears would need a Pollard injury. I've wondered if he could maybe be like this year's Chase Brown, but I don't like the offense quite as much. One of my favorite callbacks, though, is Tajay Spears, RB5 overall in PPR points during the fantasy playoffs. So while we saw Pollard actually get to take over for stretches, he had a game with a 90% snap rate. Also, Spears, he got concussed. It was like week 16 or 17, but into the third quarter, he had played all but like 2 or 3 snaps of that game. So it is a situation where if either running back goes down, I think the other one will be trusted to be that full feature back, just not an offense to be overly thrilled. So I would say Neighbors is the tiebreaker. I would still give the Giants the edge. I'd be okay putting the Titans ahead of the Steelers. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that I would put them behind the Steelers. I think DK edges Ridley, and the backfields are kind of a wash for me.
Mm-hmm. And then Warden.
Yeah. So I mean, I'm fine either way. You make the call. You're the guest.
It's DK versus Ridley. I've been drafting DK more. Okay.
Okay. So that is our 4th team in the good luck tier after we had none on the first wave of these teams. In the good luck tier, we have the Giants, the Steelers, the Titans, and then the Cleveland Browns. Hopefully that is one of the last teams we have to put there. And we just kind of pulled the Band-Aid off and we can talk about some fun guys again.
The Saints are looking at us down there at the end, but otherwise I think we're pretty good there.
Because we're going to break out of that funk here, that little mini slump, and we got a slump buster right away in the Cincinnati Bengals. Football season is right around the corner, and there's no better way to lock in your fantasy dominance early than with Best Ball on DraftKings, where you draft once and ride your roster all season long. And right now, DraftKings is giving all customers a can't-miss offer. Draft one, get one. Enter a lineup in the $15 million Best Ball contest for just $20, and you'll score another Best Ball ticket to play free for a share of $15 million, giving you a second shot to win big. It's easy. Just draft your dream team once, no weekly management required, and let your top scorers automatically start each week. Across the whole season, every breakout star, every clutch play, every touchdown will count towards your quest for a share of $15 million. And if you're looking for someone to plug into your best ball lineup, there's nothing better to buy than year 2 wide receivers. Looking at wideouts that have been selected outside of the top 24 based on years in the league, second-year wideouts have delivered the highest hit rates for beating their ADP and delivering wide receiver 1 and wide receiver 2 scoring seasons. Download the DraftKings Daily Fantasy app now to draft your $20 best ball lineup to play for a share of $15 million and get a second ticket to play free for a share of $15 million. That's 2 chances to win big without ever setting your lineup again. Draft one, get one. Only on DraftKings. The crown is yours. I'll just defer to you. I know where I want to put him right now, but I'll just let you go.
They got to be elite. They got to be up there, man. I still think some of these teams remaining, Eagles, Lions, we'll get to them when we get to them. But, man, just the way Burrow consolidates everything with Higgins and Chase. I mean, look, there's a reason why all these guys are ranked top 5. Chase Brown, if he gets the second half workload, he's going to be a top 5, top 6 running back again. Maybe Moss and Pirine are a bit more involved in that.
Yeah, but he's not going to get 95% of the touches, but the 80% is still really cool.
Yeah, he could still be an RB1 there. So, not exactly, worried about that. Mike Gesicki's been one of my most drafted, later round tight ends as well. So I do think that they deserve to be up there. We have the perfect mix of, horrible defense, really talented players, and an offense that's willing to consolidate the volume around them. So I would just especially – you could argue real life as well, but especially fantasy perspective, the thing that puts them up for elite over the Bills and the Chiefs for me is, again, just the volume being concentrated more so around, 1 or 2 specific guys.
Can I sell you on putting them ahead of the Ravens?
Wow.
Because the Ravens I still think it's Lamar and it's Henry, but we still have Chase, we have Higgins, we have Brown, we have Burrow. None are like maybe outside Chase, who's the wide receiver 1 in consensus, but like does the body of all those guys and the apex of all those guys still just hold more weight over like the Flowers and Mark Andrews run out?
I mean, the Bengals have 4 dogs. The Ravens really have 2, right? At the end of the day.
And the defense is worse.
Let's go ahead. People are going to be mad on Twitter about this one for sure, but you know what? Fuck.
It's fantasy football.
And the Ravens defense looks a ton better this year. Remember that?
Right.
Too?
Right. And we are, and as good as the Ravens are, and we still hold them in elite. You can see them on the screen in elite.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to have some offensive regression. Now, regression doesn't mean boogeyman. You have to run and hide and fade at all these guys, but they're not. The odds that the Ravens run as pure from a counting stat perspective as they did last year, probably very thin.
Right.
Like for their guys to have the exact gaudy numbers that they had, there's probably going to miss some recoil here. Or at least from the Bengals, you look at it from a top-down stance, they're going to have to play the same style of football, right?
Yeah.
Like they're like, and especially if they don't get this Trey Hendrickson thing resolved, like, oh my goodness, like it's going to be the Joe Burrow show still again.
And I wouldn't even be surprised if one of Gesicki or Andre Yoshibasa, or God forbid, Jermaine Burton.
I still think I've been taking Burton at the late round, the very last round picks. And I but he's the last round pick. He's a 3rd round pick with capital. It just keeps his head on. All the reports been positive. Obviously, tomorrow always is a day away.
Yeah.
But I said I still have been at least throwing him on some rosters, especially teams where I get Burrow.
Yeah. And just Gesicki's been the one I've been drafting a ton late, man. Again, he's someone due for, you talk about someone could catch actually a few more touchdowns. Only have 2 last year. We saw him get featured more when T. Higgins was out of the lineup. So again, the fact that we have all those guys and a consensus top 5 quarterback and a running back who at the worst, definitely can't rank 15 guys ahead of Chase Brown. Bengals, number 1. How about it?
Yeah, I mean, they have 2 wide receivers being drafted in the top 15, a running back being drafted as an RB1, and a quarterback being drafted in the top half. I think that the body count pushes them ahead.
That's got to be the lowest if we averaged every team's quarterback, running back, top 2 wide receivers. The Bengals got to have the lowest overall ADP, I would think.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to the Washington Commanders, big breakout team last year. Jaden Daniels, the best quarterback value you could have had last year at ADP. Now you don't get that price point. And the other thing about the Commanders too is, now they face a hard schedule. The expectations changed. They were a team that was, at the, a 3rd place team the year before. Now they face a hard schedule. We're going to get to the Broncos too. They're in a similar boat because they overachieved last year. So now we get to finally see them kind of try to hold their weight. I think the Commanders in the playoffs showed that they are a more stable bet though than the Broncos because their offense didn't miss a beat in the playoff games. They did get kind of thwarted by the Eagles, but from a fantasy perspective, all those guys still went off in that game. Except for the running backs. So we know Jaden Daniels high. For this exercise, we're assuming Terry McLaurin's on the team still. They add Deebo Samuel. They get Laramie Tunsil. So Washington Commanders.
I will say that 4th down conversion rate is going to hurt them a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
Daniels also, wouldn't be the first quarterback in recent memory to maybe suffer a little bit of a dip in year 2. I'm not exactly anticipating it though. So it's tough, man. They're definitely good or very good. The problem is Jaden Daniels, obviously consensus, kind of QB4 or even QB3, I should say. A lot of people taking him ahead of Jalen Hurts, and that's fine. But Terry McLaurin, all right, most of us have him as mid to low end wide receiver too. I was honestly surprised last year he just didn't get more targets. Obviously, made the most out of him. The dude, I think, had more top 15 weeks than any other wide receiver in the league, so made the best of it. But you could argue that he might not run as hot. Debo, someone that I'm not making a huge habit of betting on. Everyone's pretty much got him outside the top 30, 36 wide receivers. Old man Ertz, okay, maybe he can pull another tight end one season out of his ass, but wouldn't anticipate it. There's just not as many fantasy stars as you would think with an offense that we still expect to be pretty good. So that puts him, I think, closer to the Buccaneers than the Chiefs and Bills. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that they have to be behind the Bills because it's a similar argument for the Bills, right? Is that you have the quarterback that's like the head pin. But then James Cook better than the running backs here. You can say Terry McLaurin and Debo better than the receivers. And then, Dalton Kincaid versus Zach Ertz. I'd still side with Kincaid. But Josh Allen, I think his body of work is just too hard to fade, right? Like he's been the QB2 or better 5 straight years. So I think that we lean on still Allen over Daniels, who's going to, again, like I said, these Commanders are going to have to prove it now. Again, like, 'cause everyone knows that they're good. So like as a team perspective, like they're going to be getting a lot harder schedule. So I put them behind the Bills, probably behind the Chiefs still too, just because the upside for the Chiefs. But I still would lean towards either the front of very good ahead of the Bucs or the back of very good with the Chiefs. I will defer to you for the split.
Let's give them Jaden Daniels is pretty freaking special. Let's put him behind the Chiefs.
Okay. Are you doing anything with the backs?
Actually, I've been okay drafting them at their price points. It's one of the weirder, and I'm sure you kind of, when you were going through the RB position, you had to deal with this too, but just based on both guys being injured for different portions of the year, it was really hard to get like an accurate multi-week split about what's going to happen. I will say at different points in the season, both Robinson and Eckler had a snap rate north of 70%. So I do think if one of the guys is healthy and the other one's out, we're going to see a situation where we can rank them pretty favorably, as at least, upside RB2 types. So Eckler for me is someone that I've drafted a ton because he's almost in that same Jalen Wright sort of mold. And I was talking about him beginning of our last episode where Eckler, I do think has nice handcuff upside, maybe not the top 5 guy that he was back in the day or anything, but Jacobs, Henry, and obviously Saquon changed these teams. Eckler showed a lot more juice last year as well. Unfortunately, the concussions kept him out down the stretch, but he does have that 7-8 catch upside still with, doing his thing on the ground. So Eckler for me, good, maybe not great handcuff upside, but could actually have the flex standalone value that separates him amongst those more pure handcuff types like the Algiers and Bensons of the world.
Yeah, and both guys, I think from a best ball perspective, stand out based on what site you play on. Obviously, Underdog, which is not full point PPR. You can just take Brian Robinson and say there's going to be a handful of weeks where this offense is good enough to give him scoring opportunities, and you take the touchdowns he gets. In a season-long league, that's going to be probably drive you crazy. But Eckler inverse on DraftKings is going to have those weeks where he gets a handful of catches, right, based on the game script, and could have a long one. He actually, his efficiency bounced back last year. I do believe that if something were to happen to Robinson because the concussions that happened to Eckler, they might not give him as much of a full run out as they did in the Robinson injury games. But I've also been kind of sprinkling in the just with Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt just a little bit, just throwing a little dabble. Because I do think he's going to look really good in camp. And, Brian Robinson's in a contract here. Maybe they just give him a couple looks, and then once the genie's out of the bottle, you never know. So I haven't just been
there's a hive out there, man. I've seen him sneaking around on the old Twitter space.
Well, I do think if that weird thing that would have happened when he lost the year of eligibility due to the number change. Do you know the story behind it?
No.
Yeah, so like he had a redshirt year, I think it was at South Alabama, wherever the first school he went to, and he changed his number that year, and apparently someone else wore that number, and after he played one game with Arizona this year, like they went back and they rescinded his redshirt year, so he's out of eligibility. So he couldn't play the rest of the year this year. Yeah, it's a super weird thing that happened.
Wow.
So he played a game, he has 100 yards and like a touchdown in week 1. Has to miss the whole rest of the year. He goes to the East-West Shrine game, wins MVP of that. He has 2 touchdowns and like 97 yards and like 11 carries.
Okay.
Wins MVP. Like, I do think if he would be able to play the full season, he might be able to create some more draft stock for him. But I don't know. He's an interesting dynasty guy.
I bet he will get opportunities though, because even I mentioned, Eckler.
He's McNichols.
Yeah, Chris Rodriguez is bum ass. So yeah, no, I could see him at least getting the chances. And hey, Eckler, B-Rob, not exactly running pure. I'll entertain.
All right, All right, I see we have a run of like 4 good teams here. We'll do before we break it off again.
Mm-hmm.
We've got the Philadelphia Eagles next. Obviously, Saquon, and people will talk about the 400 touches and the RB1 repeating again. I saw you had a fun tongue-in-cheek tweet earlier this week that, like, it's funny, the RB1 is never repeated. But the one thing about the Eagles is we know the pieces here. It's a consolidated offense, and we know they're all really good players. So I think the question here is, when we talk about the Eagles, is do they end up jumping the Bengals?
They're ahead of the Ravens, I think, because we feel so much better about AJB and Devonta over Flowers and Bateman. Similar rankings for Hurts and, Saquon versus Henry and Lamar. So over the Ravens, they probably, we all have Goddard ranked higher than Gesicki and everything. It's not like we feel great about Burton or Yoshivash. We have Hurts ahead of Burton. Yeah, I think the Eagles got to be one.
Saquon's ahead of Chase Brown.
Yep.
This is a team too, I think, is going to throw the ball a lot more, even before we get to like the Saquon regression stuff. I mean, they play 10 playoff games this year against 2020, or they play 10 games against 2024 playoff teams. They go from having our 4th easiest schedule to having our 4th hardest schedule. It's the most significant swing for any team. And what that means is they're just going to be challenged a little bit more. You look at last year, they only trailed for 62 plays in the 4th quarter last year. In the first half of games last year, Jalen Hurts averaged 17.8 dropbacks per game. That was 14th in the league. The Eagles are never going to be like top 5 in pass rate. But in the second half of games, 11.3 dropbacks per game, 36 in the NFL, dead last. He had 86 total dropbacks in the 4th quarter last year. I mean, you could just go back to 2023. He had 140. So they're going to throw a lot more. I think they're going to be challenged to throw more. That gives upside to like some of these receivers. It's still a bunch of talent we believe in. The offensive line we believe is better than the Bengals too. So I have a hard time not putting them at top of elite.
The defense too. I know they have so many young guys and Howie does a great job and everything, but it's the single.
They lost pieces.
Yeah, the single cheapest defense in the league right now in terms of $25. So lost some pieces. Not saying they don't have some young injury to step up, but at a minimum, I could see that defense, not exactly being, a world-beating group. Certainly closer to the Bengals and the Ravens. So yeah, I'm cool with the Eagles at 1.
Yeah, I like it. Let's move on to the Cowboys here. Another team that is pretty interesting. Hiring Brian Schottenheimer as head coach. We've got Dak coming off of a hamstring injury. We don't know really this misfit toys backfield to put together, but we love CeeDee Lamb and we're optimistic about George Pickens. So what about these Cowboys?
Why was Dak so bad last year before he got hurt?
It was bad. It was rough.
It was. He's been a shell of himself. So many injuries. Okay, like obviously had the ankle snap.
Oh, the rushing is dead now. Like the rushing is this was the nail in the coffin. This hamstring.
Yeah, it's not going to get better with the hamstring being ripped off his freaking bone. That sounds horrible. The arm strength really hasn't been there for a couple of years. I remember that week 1 game against the Buccaneers, and we're all like, "Wait, what? When did Dak lose his ability to throw a fastball?" So. I like the addition of Pickens. This is now potentially, his best 1-2 punch he's had. Maybe Amari Cooper and younger CeeDee Lamb is better. But either way, it's up there. It's much better than what it's been in recent years. Offensive line has been dicey, man. This is not even close to that 2016, group of guys. And use a first round pick on Booker. That's great. Is he immediately going to give you even the lesser version of Zach Martin who retired? I don't know, man. So it's an offensive line I don't feel great about. We have not that running back is the most important position for a supporting cast, but I'd like to have some level of juice. Right now, there's a chance that this is the single worst backfield in the league. So is it literally just this offense, which couldn't get much going even with Dak healthy during the first part of last year? We're putting all of our eggs in the George Pickens basket? Is that what we're doing here, man? Because I like Pickens too, but I don't like Pickens being the reason from the Cowboys going from a below average offense to anything close to great. So I definitely wouldn't have them in very good or elite. I think when we start to look at it, they belong to be in the good tier. I'd probably put them ahead of the Falcons, but man, I think we're drafting the Falcons guys higher over like Bijan.
I would be okay putting them behind the Falcons because of just Bijan and London basically being 2 first rounders, where we have Lamb as a first rounder. And what else? Like we're hoping Pickens takes a jump forward. And there's a lot. I've made the bull case for Pickens too, in terms of where he's going. Yeah. But Pickens, while Lamb's playing, isn't going to be a wide receiver 1. So and honestly, what's the real gap from a fantasy perspective? How wide is the gap from Pickens to Mooney?
It could be a lot tighter than we're anticipating,
right?
Man. And Ferguson and Pitts are kind of going.
I do.
Each other
I do think both these teams are going to. They're both are going to throw a ton. I think.
Yeah.
But Bijan, I think Bijan potentially being the highest scoring fantasy player overall, maybe gives them an edge to me.
Well, because think about it, CD in London is, I think, same. We're taking CD, but I mean,
we're taking CD, but from like a counting stat perspective, both guys are going to be. They play inside out. They play slot. They play the
Bijan to Javonte Williams is the biggest joke of this entire thing.
All right.
The Cowboys.
I'm putting him in good behind the Falcons, the same tier: Buccaneers, Dolphins, Cardinals, Falcons, then Cowboys in good. Let's do one more team here before we take our last break and bring this thing home. It is the Los Angeles Chargers, and the Chargers are an interesting team to me because a lot of people are citing these splits that they had last year from the front half and back half of the season. I will contend that those have a little more fragility than I think most are assuming when you look at the way the Chargers season progressed and ended. You know, they really struggled to run the football the back half of the year. There's a reason J.K. Dobbins was available to the point he was, and Gus Edwards remains available.
Yeah.
And then you look to the playoffs, the Chargers lose a playoff game where Justin Herbert throws 4 interceptions and they run the ball 18 times for 50 yards. Do we believe that Jim Harbaugh and Greg Roman, after that game, sat down and said, yeah, that's the kind of football we like to play? And so what do they do in free agency? Free agency opens up. They throw the bag at Mekhi Becton, try to ensure that right guard spot. They do sign Najee Harris. Again, we are not a fireworks podcast. We will wait till we get some. We will wait till we get some concrete information on that. But then they use a first round pick on a running back. I am not willing to go all in on their passing splits. I think they're probably somewhere in between where they ended and where they started. To me, you're excited about Ladd McConkey as a talent, but I will say this: when you look at Ladd McConkey from a fantasy perspective, what's the story you have to tell yourself for him to get 150 targets? It's tough. I love the player.
Yeah.
I mean, so Chargers, where are we slotting them? Like, again, because Herbert's in this weird range, this nebulous quarterback range.
I think they deserve to be fine. I would keep him just out of good. I'm with you. I have the problem is, like, if, you know, again, not a firework podcast. If Hampton was just, if Najee didn't exist and we'd be firing up Hampton as a top 12, maybe even top 10 running back from day one. If we had that,
how close would you have Hampton to JT if you knew Najee Harris was not on the Chargers right now?
Right next to him. I'd have Hampton ahead of Jacobs, ahead of Bucky.
I think that's the area where I would have him too, because I think every pro argue you make for JT, the Chargers are better. They have a better offensive line. He's going to.
Oh, you said Genty? I thought you said JT, but I have them to each other either. So
yeah, JT, because the offensive line for the Chargers is better than the Raiders. The quarterback's better, even if, you know, we are Geno Smith stands, and the Chargers will score more points than the Raiders.
Yeah.
But again, we don't know. We're not a fireworks podcast, but with the Chargers in general, though, you hit on that though. We only kind of largely care about 2.5 players. We care about McConkey, we care about Hampton, and then Herbert's in like that. In one quarterback leagues, he might not even get drafted in some. I
mean, dude, 22 fantasy points per game each of his first 2 years, but it's been a minute, man. We haven't even cracked 18 since then. So the fact he did have the rushing, you know, career high last year, despite dealing with the, you know, August ankle issue and then having September ankle, had the foot issue going on in August. So that's impressive. But at the same time, man, I know Greg Roman's history with Lamar and Tyrod and these guys. Like, Justin Herbert, I'd be very surprised if he's going to be clearing 400, you know, rushing yards and being used as a legit rushing weapon near the goal line. So I'm not exactly expecting him to take this boom. And an offense, I think you're right to believe, is going to be more run heavy. So I'm thinking right behind the Bears. Is that too harsh?
Oh man, I can't wait till we tweet this out. People are going to lose their minds.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I still would say Ladd gives them the benefit of the doubt to go ahead of the Bears.
Ladd's the best player involved. I mean, that's kind of been our tie.
And I think Hampton versus Swift is that I would just bet on Hampton, especially if something were to happen to Najee Harris.
Yeah. I'm cool with that. And then the Cowboys above, they have their true alpha and CD, which is kind of separating them.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it's easy to tell yourself that CeeDee Lamb walks into 150 targets. Like easy, if not a lot more, healthy. Ladd McConkey, as great of a player he is, and I think you bet on him in Dynasty. I mean, I have a hard time clicking him because in that range of those ADPs, like even against the tight ends, because I think McBride and Bowers both out target him on a projection stance. I mean, he's the hardest player for me because I believe in the player, and he's in between. Lad McConkey's in between like AJ Brown and Zay Flowers for me because of the usage stuff. Like AJ Brown has his first 2 years with the Eagles already showed us he can push 150 targets and get 1,500 yards. So I'm not really that worried. And I just made the case for them throwing more this year. Lad, we still have to kind of tell ourselves that story. How does he get to 150 targets?
And I really do think Herbert, I mean, I know some people don't believe him to be a top 5, 6 caliber real life quarterback. I do. I believe in the guy. You know, he can kind of paint your story. Bad playoff performance against the Texans, you know, aside, I'd obviously getting chased, running for his life from Will Anderson and company for most of that afternoon as well. But unfortunately, just again, fantasy perspective, which I'm sure people won't exactly get the point as clearly as we would prefer once we tweet this thing out. But yeah,
I can't wait. I can't wait. You know, you're the perfect guest to do this with because you are someone that you're going to roll with this. You're going to roll with the vitriol we get, the hate we get with this. Neither one of us will check the YouTube comments, so it'll be cool. All right, listen, we have 11 more teams to do. That's going to wrap the second part of us breaking down the NFL confidence rankings for fantasy football. We're going to do part 3 with my guest Ian Hartitz when we come back.